Hello, everyone. Welcome to Get in the Garage.
We're a music podcast.
For music lovers.
Today we are celebrating our 100th episode, guys. We've been through this 100 times.
Wow, yay.
100 times.
In person, in a garage, in a sun porch, in a basement, on Zoom.
In a dining room.
In a dining room.
All over the place. I think we did one in a living room. We did one on
Me and Jeff were outside once.
Yeah.
That's where we played.
We did outside.
Go-Go's or Bengals.
That's
Yeah. We had another outside one. Remember when we had Laura on from the podcast? And you know what else? Laura May, Jeff's sister.
How do you pronounce lowercase, uppercase, lowercase, uppercase, lowercase?
And you know what else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone knows I'm a master impressionist. But we have a fun and exciting show. Roy, our good friend Roy Houle, joins us again on the podcast. That'll come a little bit later.
Push your glasses down, Lou.
Are they a little bit
There you go.
undone?
You're good.
Push them
Sorry,
down
I'm
so you
disheveled.
look like Albus Dumbledore.
You're good now.
Very
I
good.
call that the Chuck Schumer.
Gryffindor House.
That's original Dumbledore. Richard Harris.
He's my Dumbledore. 400 points. Gryffindor House. The poor old wheezing man. Rest in peace, by the way, to the OG Dumbledore. Anyway, this is a music podcast, not a movie podcast.
Not yet.
So we're going to hit you. Yeah, right. We're going to hit you with a music review and a sort of revisited that we had talked about before. So why don't we get this party started?
Have we had the theme song for all 100 episodes?
Yes.
Oh, we have?
No.
No, but it's on every episode now. Like I went in and I put it in.
I got two good ones.
You know what I really wanted to do? Because people will be able to tell by the title, because this episode, later on, Roy is going to be in and talking about festivals and stuff. I thought about at the end where we go, I didn't get to it, but I wanted to like record myself over and over and over again and tag it out at the end and say, thanks, Jerry. I didn't get the chance to. Or if we did a jam band version of the
Thank you, Jerry. We'll have to retool it. We'll have to
Be like,
Yeah.
get in.
Get up.
Oh,
Get up in the garage.
Before we really get into what we got into,
please.
I shared with these guys. I've been getting advertised this record on Instagram for a couple weeks now. It's Bobby Ramone. Look it up on your Spotify, and it is Ramones type songs with Bob Marley lyric samples over it. So you get like Get Up, Stand Up done in a Ramones style. It's like Get Up, Stand Up. It's really
But it's
weird.
Bob Marley himself, right?
It
They
is
like
Is
literally
this
adjusted his...
authorized? Probably not.
I was trying.
So check it out before it gets yanked.
I was trying to figure out if it was authorized. I couldn't see anything because the Bob Marley estate is like really legit and has a bunch of hands and everything. I couldn't find anything that was saying this was legit, but it is hilarious. Check out Bobby Ramone. Everybody here was laughing pretty hysterically at everyone I played. Each one got more ridiculous than the next.
Yeah.
Jamming was my favorite.
Yeah.
So
check that out.
Bobby
I'll
Ramone.
try to find it and link it if I can. So we were scanning what we were going to talk about in terms of album reviews. You know, there was kind of slim pickings this upcoming week. So one of the bands we thought that we would review is
the band Momma. They are from Calabasas, California. They are comprised of pretty much the two main drivers of this band are oh man, why can't I read my writing? We have Allegra
over here.
You should talk. Mr. Marbles.
Mr. Marbles,
and
yes.
the Big Sleepies.
We have Adam Friedman, and we have Allegra Warrington. I believe that's how you pronounce that. So that's Adam Friedman and Allegra Warrington. They are the two driving forces behind the band Momma. This is their third release, second
That's spelled
release.
Momma.
No caps.
Thank you. The release before
believe
this
it's no
was
caps.
Two of Me. This record is called Household Name. Let's get into this band.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a general consensus.
First off, let's describe what it sounds like. It is a rock band, so guitar, bass, drums.
Yep.
Mostly, it's got female vocals on it.
Yeah.
It's more in the garage rock vein, garage rock indie vein, kind of.
Yep.
Kind of like late 90s emo,
Thank you. It's
Sunny Day Real Estate type of emo.
Okay.
Nirvana-y.
Nirvana-y with that
Foo Fighters-ish.
Sleepy Nirvana.
Oh, I'd say Foo Fighters, very Foo Fighters-y, like color and shape.
I wouldn't, because especially Color and the Shape has so many pop hooks and
Well,
big songs, and this
I'm talking sound-wise. If we're getting into the nitty-gritty of how the songs come out.
Can I just say where I found the Foo Fighters influence is just the way that the vocals are sort of doubled up. That's the thing, and that for me, as a lot of people who know, is not really my favorite sound when it comes to vocal delivery and stuff. I mean, like the most
Thanks,
I'll get into
John
it.
Lennon.
Thanks, John Lennon and Ozzy. And in those instances, I'm kind of okay with it. But
It's also getting
you know.
like a lot of people are saying this kind of sounds like a Smashing Pumpkins record. I don't really think it sounds like that either. But
the first Smashing Pumpkins, it kind of reminds me of the first Smashing Pumpkins.
It does.
The first Foo Fighters, the self-titled. Possibly.
It does in only the way that the guitars are like a sound on that Smashing Pumpkins record, and maybe like the way they feel. But
I wish these guitars sounded like those guitars.
yeah, like this for me, like it has a lot of like you were saying, like the rhythm is kind of like clean, and it kind of has like distorted like strum out, and the bass is really like it's bassy. It's got like that kind of thing. Not like the bass is like doing a lot of crazy work, but it's got like the
It's got kind of a there's a kind of a clunkiness to that bass.
yeah. And not like I would say it's just kind of boom, big fills.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like that late 90s emo.
Yeah.
Beginning of emo, before emo became more like pop punk.
Yeah. But I kind of feel like, the overall sort of consensus between the three of us, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I can say and we'll get into it, is I didn't really connect with this album. I found I had a hard time connecting with it. I kind of had a hard time, I was just kind of underwhelmed, and I know that might sound a little bit harsh, but I just didn't. I had a hard time with it.
This record underwhelmed me a little bit too. It's kind of it's adjacent to like bands like Wet Leg that have released albums recently, and definitely to even Snail Mail, like we talk about a lot, and Soccer Mommy has like that kind of like styling, and maybe that sort of like fan base would be adjacent. But for me, the reason that like this doesn't like work for me the way the Soccer Mommy record did is like a lot of it sounds the same. Like the tone of the songs are kind of the same tone.
Yeah, the
vocal delivery kind of gets the same for a lot of it. So the production style being so kind of slated across every track on here, it kind of starts to melt together with me. The big reason, though, is lack of melody. There's not a lot of great melodic tricks on this record that were blowing my mind. And also lyrically for me, even. I know there's some songs I do like on here, but lyrically for me, a lot of this record was falling flat. I also kind of felt that it was like 15 minutes too long. It's quite a long rock record at 45 minutes in length.
Yeah, it's just so this is their third record. I think it's, to go positive, I think it's like they're doing their thing. It sounds like they made the record they want to make. Like there's no sloppy accidents. Like it is very purposeful. But it just didn't do anything for me. Like I don't know how you record a drum set. I get making certain artistic choices based on different songs, but like never once on this record do I hear like a full cymbal crash. It seems like like never do I hear like do 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 do. It's all like do, 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 do. It's so low in the mix. It's so like the guitars when it's clean, when it's like the rhythm guitar, it's like there's enough overdrive or enough like the amps turned up enough to kind of not be just like strummy clean guitar, but barely. So I don't know, they're it's not music for me, And like straight up, like I can't remember the last record I listened to that bored me as much as this.
Oh, I can remember the last record that bored me as much. It was
Mastodon?
No, it was a record I forget the band, but it was a record that you had us listen to that didn't have a bass player that I was equally as bored with.
That didn't have a bass player.
Yeah, we were. It was like we were kind of doing like free record reviews, and you were kind of just picking ones out that were like suggested on Spotify. I forget the name of this band, but
I don't remember.
they didn't have a bass player. I
I
remember.
can't remember. I'll have to do some research.
It was on this podcast, but
Yeah.
So dealing with like lyrically, like where they're coming from in this record, it's kind of got like the record is called Household Name. They have a song on it called Rockstar. So it's kind of dealing with this band, like kind of facing to the fact that they do want to be big rock stars, and they do want to be household names. They want to be in it. But having said that, they're also saying it with like an indie tongue, a very indie tongue in cheek. I don't think they think that they're going to actually be that. But for me, where the album works is the song Rockstar. Lyrically, that like comes together where they're saying like their funny things about Rockstar, like they're kind of making like the drummer keeps like disappearing, or like they're kind of making that Spinal Tap reference where the drummer keeps like dropping out on them and they can't get a good band together. So like lyrically that song works for me. We already productioned it to death, but so like that one works really well. I thought the single Speeding 72 was another example where that worked way better. Production-wise, even on that song where they're switching off on the chorus where one girl's going da na 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 ba da na 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 filling up the ashtray. That really works for me melodically. That was probably the most interesting thing for me on the whole record. And then even to working with the other song, Sellout, which was like the first song, I believe. That song also had that good like rock star struggling vibe. Mm-hmm. This band seems to want to be a Haim type band. But for me, they are not really coming through with the rest of their like lyric. Like it was a half thought out idea, like Household Name. Because for me, like what really doesn't work is songs like Medicine on the album. I've heard that metaphor a lot. It's really stale. I Need You Like Medicine just doesn't work for me. The song Spider, Caught in the Web, No Doubt's done it. Parquet Courts did it last fall on their record. Say Anything has done it. I'm Caught in Your Web, Spider. That it's just a stale metaphor. Lucky, I'm lucky to have you. Like things like that. I don't want to drown this to death, but those are just like three examples for me on the album of songs that
I was
going to
slap
work.
your hand if you started playing this record underneath.
No. I was just
I wouldn't be
looking.
able to hear Luke over the sound of my own snoring. Please don't play
Can I
this.
say this?
Good Soldier, though. Good review. Good, because I agree with a lot of the points you made.
And that's why
Speeding 72 and Rockstar are the two tracks that I enjoyed the most out of the batch.
Because they have that, like, one, Speeding 72 gives you a time, place, you know what they're talking about, it's the car, it's teenage, works.
And I like the first track because it starts with, like, Guiro and Vibroslap, and I thought,
Which was,
oh, cool, I might enjoy this. And then it's like,
right.
Yes, because
no,
it
you
was
won't.
that was like that was a textured
Gotcha.
a textured flavor that
Right.
that perked your ear,
Right.
and it does not perk your ear like that for like the rest of this record.
Yeah.
It just kind of falls flat.
Yeah, I would say if I'm gonna, because we try to give the good with the bad, the yin with the yang. I think that what is this record then? If we're gonna ask ourselves that question, who's it for? What is it? I think that it is kind of like a young person in their coming of age part in their life, road trip sort of soundtrack. That's what it sounds like to me.
Because isn't this band, they're like all like 21 years old or something.
Yeah, they're quite
Yeah.
they're pretty young.
Yeah. So I'll give it that. I think it's like a young person's road trip album, or an album that might be like a good soundtrack to a road trip movie or something, kind of like that. That kind of was the vibes
This
that I was
has
getting.
much more to do with like adolescent pop punk than it does like facing to like adult contemporary music, like say like the Soccer Mommy is beginning to do. So this is like still on the way more adolescent scale of that style of band.
Yeah. I shared my for the songs that you guys had listed off as liking. I also liked the song No Bite. That's the album closer.
Oh,
I'll
sure.
give that song credit in the sense that like I remember when I was listening to the album all the way through, when I got to this song, I was like, oh, this is definitely the last song. It felt like it was the last song. Like it kind of gave this sort of closing to the record. So credit where credit's due. They were very effective in being like, "Yep, this is the last song," because it kind of has this vamped out ending and kind of bigger, sort of climactic kind of thing at the end of it. So, kudos to them for that. What did you guys think? Did you like this Momma record? Did you not like this Momma record? Luke and I were getting
Scores.
into
We gotta give scores.
it.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll take the plunge. Straight up, it's 2.5.
2.5.
And I'm being generous with that.
Rough.
Personally.
Rough.
It's just I
could see it because
just not enjoy this.
no, I could see why it's a low score. Like if I'm gonna I'm gonna shout out an album I think that is like this record that is works better on like 80 levels that like I described. Bully, the band Bully's album Sugar Egg from 2020.
Yeah.
It's got all that
We talked about them
Nirvana-y
too.
sweet stuff you want. It's got lyrical, it's got melodies.
So
So I think that's an example that works better. Like this album, for me, I'm gonna give it a 4. It's just it plays all the way through. It's pretty innocuous. None of the songs are like terrible. It's just if anything boring for me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the worst thing I could say about it.
Yeah, I'll go 4-2 with you. I'll meet you at 4 because I think that like for the things that it does well, it does well. It's just for me, I was just not really like, oh, I'm gonna listen to this album again. Like it just didn't have that thing. There was nothing that really caught me. I mean, we were talking on the phone. That spider song, I was like, all right, we get it. You're a spider. Your web's empty or whatever. It's all the spiders, but
Well,
like.
For me, if I can
But,
I can
right?
think of 4 other songs that do the spider reference better in 3 seconds, that for me is the issue.
And go.
Because if your song is good enough, I won't think of the other songs. It'll
Yeah.
just be another song about a spider for me.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just you
Right.
know.
Okay, so there you have it, Mama. Let us know what you think. Because
We're
we're kind of
gonna-
running out of time here.
We're gonna bring back a album that we didn't give a rating for because we felt we weren't really prepared to give a rating for it.
Yes,
So,
but now,
Michael, what's the name of this record? Drum roll, please.
Mr. Marble and the Big Sleepies. No, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. It's Kendrick Lamar's record. It dropped like about a month ago now at this point. We wanted to sort of digest it. It's a very, very dense record. Digest it, kind of revisit it, come back, and give you our actual rating of this album. If you want to just start with ratings at the very top, I'm gonna go. I think it's like an 8.9 to a 9 for me. I might do 8.9. I know that's kind of pitchforky of me, but it's only because I would say the fact that like although there are like quote unquote singles on this album, this is not a singles record, and it's very demanding of the listener to listen to, and it's very dense. That being said, listening to this record back again, it's like, oh man, this is a high watermark of artistry. And we were talking about this earlier
'cause
today.
Me and Mike were like spitting about this album, and like if we're gonna throw a rating out there, I'm gonna give it a 9. I think it's a great record. I listened to this album multiple times in the full length since then. What I think what makes this album a 9, what makes this album a great record is when me and Mike are talking about it, we have points of what about this? What about if that's about this? What about if this is about that? And that's culturally about the. Me and Mike are just rambling on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
So that for me is already like it already has me and Mike talking a large amount
In depth,
right, about the content of every song and why it's there and why you thought to place it on there. So just generally, that's
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say a 9 for me. It made my last week's episode. We talked about our 5 favorite records from the first half of the year. It made my list, made my top 5 of 2022 so far. I say 9, but I also say it is still my least favorite of his major label output since Good Kid, Mad City. But that's because all the previous albums I would put as like half of them are 10s for me personally. But yeah, it's a very strong album. It works a lot better. I'm glad we revisited it after a month because it is just a lot to try to absorb quickly. And this is an album that it has some soundbite songs that kind of get stuck in your brain, but it's more of like the traditional double record of put it on, listen to the whole thing.
Yep.
Whereas his previous albums, I could pick and choose, I could do shuffle, and this isn't so easily shuffleable. But a great work, and hopefully we don't have to go another 5 years before before another record.
Yeah, I know.
I like me and Mike were talking about too, like compared to the the other big rap release, which really wasn't a rap release, was like the Drake release.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for Drake to come out with like not a rap record and a dance record, and this to be like a introspective giant record, they're two very different records, two very different facing ways of hip hop. It seems like now that we're in the depths of summer, Beyonce is about to drop, and I know she's not a rapper, but a
Hip-hop artist,
dance themed record. And so for me, like this record, I was trying to like think if there was like more like dance elements on here. Really wasn't super dancey because I was trying to think if like that was like an underline, but for me it was. I think this record, like I was talking to Mike, is a shift towards maybe changing some of the things that he thought were not great in hip hop, like the song about I'm so sorry if it's his uncle.
A trans relative.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
It's so like in the use of the F word and all that, and I know that was a point I brought up in the last time, but even so, like it seemed like more of a referendum on where hip hop may have been lacking in its like moral stances sometimes, because even like with the take off this, take off that, take off this, what do you have? What do you have? You have the basis of it. You know what I mean? And so like where he's kind of saying those things, and even to where I was talking to Mike about the argumentative song where he's having the argument dialogue. That song on the record for me was like a whole, like you had the first example of that, which we also said was like Eminem and Kim. And I said to Mike, I was like, even the fact that there's a woman on there and she's giving the other end of that back, is one, inviting women into the dialogue. It's having a conversation back and forth, whether the conversation is hard to hear or not. It still invites that other person onto the page to give a rebuttal. So, like, I think it's a transformation of where I think he wants his own art and the art of maybe his peers to kind of evolve and change into. Because for me, it was more of like this is where I am. Are you guys here? Like it was almost like a question to everybody else. I don't know if that came across you guys on the second listen more or.
Yeah, I think it's funny how, because we were talking about it earlier today, and how, Drake dropped the record. There's mixed reviews. The people who love it absolutely love it and kind of dub it as being this like sort of trailblazing sort of record where it's inviting this kind of different genre into the hip hop and rap room. So to a certain extent, maybe, where I don't know, man. I think this Kendrick Lamar album is the trailblazing record. This to me is the bigger statement. It's the bigger artistic statement as as a whole. I think.
I mean, just when you're talking about comparing impact or artistic output, like straight up, I'm gonna say that Drake hasn't made a single album that is as good as Kendrick's worst album.
Yeah, right.
Drake's a singles guy. Drake's a hits guy.
Yeah. And I know it's kind of maybe unfair to draw that comparison,
right.
but at the same time, it's like
comparing Snoop Dogg and Nas. They're just aiming for very different things.
Right.
I'm just going for like stylistic.
This is a very mature record, and
comparatively, like that seems to be like, you know what I mean. Like it seems like that they're going like dance, and he's like kind of. And it's almost like
he's raising the ceiling.
Well, you almost wonder if he's going to be this kind of like, I don't know, like a Stevie Wonder for the hip hop era, where he's kind of going to elevate out of hip hop anyway and just be Kendrick Lamar. It does his Kendrick Lamar thing, and it's not so much an influence on what's going on with new hip hop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But do you think like the title, Mr. Morale? Do you think that like? Because I kind of took the title of the album with the mix of the songs and kind of took it as a morale-facing, album of like what are morals, what do we stand for, that kind of thing. Did you guys get that more, or because I think that the title might be too on the nose? I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is his most personal record. It's his most like present day record because a lot of his previous work has been about the community at large, the Black community, America at large, inner cities. Whereas this album is more like his personal experience, his personal viewpoints, his.
So this is more of like a put on your air mask before you help others kind of thing, where he's like, I had to fix myself kind of thing to really
that's a
fix
good way of-
outwardly.
I like that.
You have the dialogue through all the interludes with all the therapy things,
Right,
and stuff,
because there
so-
is that there's the element to it of self-care and really dealing with your own problems at home.
Yeah.
I think because there wasn't a lot of like, there's a lot. The only reason I'm saying like in the wake of it is because he's such a pivotal artist in the hip hop community. So whatever he does is gonna reverberate in that field. But to its own thing, it's also, you're right, like super super personal, and so it might be on the other affecting that way. But
this was his
So,
least celebrated record that he's put out,
and that's why.
especially with the hip hop community. This album
Yeah.
was very much like, but that's also because every album previously has shit you can blast in your car and stuff, and this isn't going for that.
For an album listener, this is an album. This is like, as I'm an old school album guy, you guys know this. Obviously, you see the shelves over here, but like for me, this plays like an old school double album. It has like meaning and point and flow, and it's got parts that make me uncomfortable, but that's what great art does. It challenges, it'll make you kind of squeamish. I think this has songs like I don't want to listen to all the time, which is also like the issue with it, because it has challenging songs, which might be some people's contention, but I don't know, man. I think the putting yourself out there so much and really laying it all on the table, is a classic record. I don't think it's I think, like Mike said the first time, I think that you were like, people are sleeping, they don't get it yet. I think this is a full record. If that comes more back into vogue of full album listening, I think this might get in people's higher regards. But
So there you go. There you have it. 9s all around for Kendrick Lamar with Mr. Marble and the Big... I'm just kidding. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. We'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with...
The Music Podcast.
The Music Podcast with Mr. Roy Houle.
I don't say it right when we come back from break.
Yes,
I'm a fortune teller.
All right. Not until next time. We're not signing off. Jesus, we'll be right back.
We recorded this out of order,
Yes,
if you can't tell. So we did the other part first, and you'll be able to tell.
We've inceptioned ourselves.
Yes. So we'll be right back. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Get in the Garage.
It's a music podcast.
For music lovers.
We are here celebrating our 100th episode. So something to celebrate for. We also have our good buddy Roy Houle back on the podcast. Shout out to Roy.
Congratulations.
He featured on the audio only episode early on in the podcast with Bob Marley, and then again on the audio only Thanksgiving special with the Last Waltz. So definitely check those out.
Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, man. I thought we would celebrate. I got a little bit of non-alcoholic sparkling wine for us, so we could celebrate a little bit. I looked for non-alcoholic cider, and I couldn't find any, so it's just in big red letters, alcohol removed wine, sparkling brut from the California
This sounds
vineyards.
disgusting.
Yeah.
Alcohol removed wine does not sound as good as sparkling grape juice.
I couldn't find
2019, an excellent year.
Yeah. Let me see what's the date on it. I don't know that they date these
It
ones.
can't be
'cause
that
it's not
old
really.
because aging is what adds the alcohol.
It would ferment by then.
It was bottled 3 months ago.
Lots of artificial things in here. There is grape juice concentrate as well, so
Delicious.
you guys are in for a real treat.
Thank you.
So, Jeffrey, why don't you tell the good people what we're getting into this episode while I pour the champagne?
We're going to talk about music festivals, summer music festivals. 'Tis the season where things are hopping off pretty much every week. There's festivals all over the country, all over the world. Summertime is the hot time for music and live music in particular. And we're just going to discuss some festivals of note from the past, some festivals that are kind of local to New England, some of our personal festival experiences, some do's and don'ts, some highs, some lows,
Lots of highs.
And lots of lows.
We're also going to discuss new music reviews, or a review by the band Momma,
Yes.
Momma.
Yes.
Their new
Oh.
album,
We will
Household
we
Name.
will do that.
Highly
Wi-
anticipated.
Highly anticipated. Yeah. We'll do that either. I don't know if it'll be like, we might do it before, we might do it after.
And
we're
then
not sure.
we also have a Kendrick Lamar update.
Re-update.
from
Yes. Yes, indeed. But let us get into it. Can we do a quick cheers to
Salute.
to 100 to 100 more
Nastrovia.
Nastrovia. Siniyamas to our health.
That's good.
That's not bad.
He didn't go cheap with the sparkling.
I don't spare. This is
Is
Liz.
this Barbasol?
well,
What is this?
It is so tart.
yeah, it's it's appley and grapey and all that good stuff. Lots of sugar too.
Lots of rain in that year.
It's a lot of you can taste the soil.
And in
And by
studying,
soil, I mean all the heavy metals that are.
in studying for this episode, I did make sure to keep myself in good sleep deprivation mode. And
Good.
was at a festival all weekend and barely slept and drank and partied all weekend.
All right,
What
here we
festival
go.
was that?
Yeah, what
It
were-
was
festival was
Summer
that?
Jam Camp Out at Thomas Point Beach, Brunswick, Maine. My fourth time at the venue, third year in a row being there for 4th of July. Great production.
Yeah.
Good crew.
Nice.
Lots of great bands we'll get into later. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but yes.
Right on. Cool. Well, I thought we would start with maybe some fun festival history and facts and whatnot. I mean, I would imagine that like music festivals have been a thing for God knows how long.
Since the Shakespearean days.
Right.
perhaps?
No,
Yeah.
maybe since ancient Greece,
Yeah.
maybe. But
Don't
we're gonna
think
start.
It's an American phenomenon.
No, I don't. No. But the American Festival has kind of grown to like sort of be its own thing. The American Music Festival has sort of like evolved and changed throughout time. From as early as what was it, Newport Jazz Festival?
Newport
You said
Jazz
what was the date on that?
Festival, 1954 to present, going to be some big acts rolling into Newport Jazz
Yeah.
and Folk Festival. Both
Right.
huge, probably the two biggest festivals in New England when you take the jam band
Historical,
music
yeah.
festivals out of the way. Those are probably the two biggest things on the
Yeah.
East Coast.
Yeah, right on. Okay, and then what came first? Did Monterey come first?
Monterey Pop was June 16th through 18th, 1967 at
67.
the
Okay.
Monterey County Fairgrounds.
Okay.
That was a really, really big festival. It was like the first like psychedelic festival of the era. It's like an aquarium, all that good stuff. Meeting of the arts. It also brought soul acts, so Otis Redding and Booker
His
T and the
big
MGs.
breakout.
Yep, into a white audience. It also had the breakout of Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, The Who's first big American performance, Crosby, Stills, nope, not Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, sorry, Buffalo Springfield, all
Ravi
those great
Shankar.
acts.
Yeah,
Ravi
Ravi.
Shankar.
Yeah.
Tons of great acts. It's really the first great psychedelic festival of the 60s.
Yeah.
Does that festival exist in any form today?
I don't believe
Don't
it
think so.
does.
Don't think
No?
so. That was a one-time only thing that somebody.
Oh,
put
was it?
on.
It was
yeah,
only
as
done
far as I
once?
know, I don't think it was ever
was,
done a second time.
Yeah, it was like John Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas was really instrumental in putting that festival together.
Okay. All right. Cool. So then we fast forward a little bit, and then we get to. I mean,
Yasgur's
we go to Yasgur's farm.
Woodstock.
Yeah, we go to Woodstock. That's 1969. We're not gonna spend a lot of time on Woodstock. Everybody knows the Woodstock story.
August 15th
Going up the
through
country.
18th, 1969.
Yeah, and the-
Yasgur's farm.
And the attendance? Did you happen to get the attendance for that? It was like 100,000.
400,000 people.
Oh, all said and
400
done?
to 500,000 people attended
Jesus,
Woodstock.
huh? Yeah. But there was one festival that had them beat, and
Oh well, you're also okay. Yeah.
Oh, we
same,
should-
the
are we
same
jumping too
summer,
forward?
the same summer, you have Altamont happens,
right.
which is
Okay.
more,
Yes.
you know,
yes.
The hippie killer.
The hippie
Well-
killer, the yin to the yang of
yeah,
the,
absolutely. It was really
Woodstock.
the end of the Summer of Love era, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Pool cue wielding motorcycle gang members for security.
That was a good idea. That
No,
was such a good
no
idea.
facilities, no bathrooms.
Yeah.
They changed the venue on short notice and it turned into probably one of the single biggest disasters in American music history.
Yeah.
Could probably do a whole show just on that.
Yeah. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll do a whole show on Altamont.
There's a lot of information there on
Yeah.
the lead up to it and how everything happened.
Yeah.
Great documentary about that. Give Me Shelter, the Rolling Stones documentary.
Yeah. Right on. Okay. So then moving on,
The big one.
the big one,
The big one
Big
happened
Daddy Festy.
July 28th, 1973. The Watkins Glen Summer Jam.
Featuring
Grateful Dead,
Yep.
The band,
Thanks,
the
Jerry.
Allman Brothers. It was put on by a couple promoters from Hartford. You may know Jimmy Koplick's name. He had a big portion to do with Summer Jam originally. A couple quick factoids, and we can talk about it. 150,000 tickets were sold. 600,000 people showed up.
Could you imagine that in one place?
It is the
All
largest
of them are on that
concert
list,
in American history, and it is also regarded as the largest gathering of people in North American history.
What was that
we
crazy
know.
statistic you told me? Like
The
one
statistic
in.
is one of every 350 United States citizens attended the Watkins Glen Summer
crazy-
Jam.
that's
so
so
that's
crazy.
how
At
big
the
it was.
time.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I
Right.
mean, in only a 1-day 3-band show,
Yeah.
and
The crazy-
massive success.
The reband show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so because you think like all these other festivals had like 35 band deep
right.
listings, and this is like
Yeah.
a 3.
1 day,
yeah, 1 day.
huge.
Yeah.
And then also one of the most bizarre things too about this festival is like we're kind of pointed out at the beginning, it's really nobody ever really talks about it. I only really know about it because I'm a fan of the band, and they have like a live record from here that's not really a live record from that Watkins Glen event. It's like a sketchy bootleg thing. Regardless, or irregardless, whatever that word is. I don't think that's a word. But
Unregardless.
there you go. Let's go with that one. It is like the
Non-irregardless.
forgotten festival because the narrative is, Altamont killed the festival, and then this festival is bigger than Woodstock and that festival, and it's almost like you say it to people and they're like, what? And then Roy spouts off that fact, 1 in every 350 people. And then,
That's huge.
That's a
huge.
big-
That's a
Definitely
huge-
the biggest, probably the biggest musical event
Yeah.
that was ever put together. Bill Graham had a lot to do with that.
Right,
too.
right.
He's the musical
Yeah.
connection for it. If once again a whole nother great topic. Let's do a Bill Graham episode.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Fillmore East, Fillmore West.
that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah,
either.
that'd be a good idea.
Anyway,
Right on, cool. So I think what would you say? Around that time, you figure it's like 1973. These bands, it's early-ish for these bands, right? When would
Yeah.
you say like the grit, like because I wanted to talk about fandom a little bit, because you seem to have these sort of like specific types of like fan, you know what I mean? Like
fans
from
that are attracted to fandoms.
yeah,
that
like
are
you have the
attracted to-
Deadheads, you have the Fish Heads, you have like the Dave Matthews
That are, like-
hippies,
Oh,
you
Dave
have like the
Matthews.
Sublime
They're
hippie,
inclined to the festival
Yes.
show. They're inclined to the festival lifestyle now that we have, and they seems to be like a whole group of artists that have like legions of these fans that like
Yeah.
loyally go out to these shows like this like all the time. So
Do you think this is where it started though? Because like you were saying before we started, like we were just like talking about, artists or bands that have like really intense followings. You even brought up like Taylor Swift, and is like you were saying too. I'm gonna say a lot of jam band adjacent stuff. Do you think that sort of that kind of like devotional discipleship of like a certain band or something? Like Deadheads were
I
like
think
the
it goes
first
with the
like
territory.
culture that was like, we are this culture that's committed to this specific band. Like, are they the first of their kind is the question,
I don't know if they're necessarily the first of their kind, because I look at the Merry Pranksters as being the root of that culture. The
okay.
prankster culture is what leads to modern traveling
Right.
people that forsake a sedentary lifestyle
Yeah,
to go
yeah.
live between music festivals.
Yeah.
The Merry Pranksters had the Further Bus. The Grateful Dead was their house band at parties. This led to a traveling culture, which, when the big festivals happen, brought that traveling culture into the public spotlight. It kind of,
Yeah.
so I kind of think it was already happening. I think that, a lot of the, you got to think the Grateful Dead and Mother Magoo's jug band, or whatever the band, Mother McCree's jug band that they come from, all is immersed in that San Francisco culture at
Right.
that time. So
Right.
I don't know if it's necessarily the beginning of it, but it's definitely the thing that brought it to a mainstream audience and put it on television
Yeah.
and put it where pictures of hippies hitchhiking and Volkswagen buses and stuff,
Yeah,
which
right.
kind of becomes part of Americana. And then, I mean, Woody Guthrie. I mean, I really would root all of that traveling culture to that time before Merry Pranksters in the San Francisco scene.
Yeah.
You know, the Dust Bowl.
Well, it's the children of the hobo era of the Great
Exactly.
Depression.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, and the Grateful Dead was came from a banjo band. You know, so they came from a bluegrassy band, you know, which, so, I mean, that leading forward, I think that it turns into a culture in its own.
So they end up kind of mixing that vagabond lifestyle with the cultural, the like Woodstock generation kind of thing in general. I think the Grateful Dead end up kind of being the first band that has like an insulated audience where they always have like the core fan base that like follows them around. I think as modern music is happening now, we're having a lot of bands that are like self-insulating into like their own things. Like we'll say like a band like Wilco, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, did that album review. They put on their Solid Sounds Festival every year, and it's almost like they have their own insulated audience now where they can just kind of like almost be a festival band and then do their own festival for their fans every year. And that seems to be working for them. And with that kind of tradition, we have the ICPs that do their festival every year. With those
The
bands,
Juggalos.
Roy, give us your like top 5, like the fandom bands. Like where did like what in your mind are those like, or you know, the bands that are coming around that have a large following that people might not even really know about and that really birth the culture?
I mean, definitely Fish. People definitely follow Fish. That is probably, you know, Fish has been running since 83, 84 and have probably had a consistent following since the late 80s. You know, you got to think alongside with this traveling culture comes tapers culture, which is another thing that all of these bands kind of have in common too.
You're talking cassette bootlegs.
Bootleg recording of concerts and sharing of concerts, and you know, like a lot of these bands, the live recordings of their concerts is how the music became something to each other. People didn't buy Grateful Dead records. That's what your regular people did. The fans exchanged cassette tapes and 8 tracks of record. That's its own culture in itself. Currently, there's a huge resurgence. The band Ween, which is something that I've listened to Ween since Chocolate and Cheese, which I believe is 1995. I think I forgot about them for 20 years. And now they're going to sell out Red Rocks with Primus. They're and they're really, really, really good. Like I really forgot how good the band was because they are a little goofy. They're a little strange. Don't really understand this one. This would be the one that I don't necessarily get. Sublime. I see a huge number of Sublime cover bands that are still, and it's not that I was there. I'm a child of the 90s. I was born in 1980. I loved Sublime when they came out. I remember every album coming out when it came out. And then I kind of forgot about it because it was good music, but it was, and then I think a lot of this stuff has to do too with the simplicity of songs that you can play on the acoustic guitar. So a song like What I Got, I can teach somebody to play What I Got in probably about 8 minutes if you know basic chords.
G chord and D chord.
So I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, and going back, not necessarily festival, but definitely festival, call it circus-like performance, Kiss. My friend Luke, probably the greatest marketing band of all.
He's a veteran of the Kiss Army,
know.
just so you know.
We know.
So you know, Roy. Have some.
I
He has
know.
a Purple Heart.
We saw the coffin. The coffin was right around the corner. I saw it.
Black Heart.
He's got the coffin waiting for him.
So yeah, I mean, and all of these fandoms create a place for this music to kind of, you know, create an even larger music space for other bands to come up around them, and you know, not to step off of the festival world. There's a line in a Rush song that I absolutely love that I think of all the time. That is the each and other's audience upon the gilded cage, or something along those lines, and it's how these bands kind of do become friends and fans of one another. So, you have a lot of bands that the band Goose that I know we're going to talk about. Trey Anastasio just did 2 shows. Trey Anastasio from Fish just did 2 shows with Goose.
Oh, and Father John Misty too made an appearance.
So it's like it's
keep things nice and
kind
sad.
of how the old culture gets transferred. You have Les Claypool playing upright bass for Bob Weir. How did that? Could you have told me that 15 years ago?
Yeah, no way.
No
way.
and
Bob
that's
Weir does not look
because
like he's sailing the seas of cheese anytime soon.
with Bob Weir,
Or maybe he does,
with Billy Strings playing lead guitar, a 24-year-old virtuoso bluegrass player.
Right.
That's 3 generations, 3 different kinds of music that are really coming together. And festivals in general now are really the only place to digest a lot of these bands. Because, like, if you want to go see Wolfpack this summer, probably only going to see them at massive festivals.
Right.
Yeah.
Only place they're going to be playing around the world. You want to go, like, Fearless Flyers is playing Newport. That's one of the things that's on my list that I'm thinking about going to. Big name acts on festivals this year. Even in the hip hop world, that's where they have these big hip hop
Right.
It's kind of like the rave culture too became the festival culture. What was the 90s rave culture has now transferred to that too. I see a lot of that. There's a lot of electronic music that is now done mainly in festival format.
Yeah.
Because where else can you pack? If you try to pack that many people into the Hartford Civic Center, think of all of the logistics involved. These people rent a field, Festivals are not just a good way to launder drug money anymore.
they're profitable.
So
Very profitable, and that's a interesting note too, because the profitability of festivals is really something that only is coming to light in like the 90s forward. Tons of festivals beforehand, especially in America, like notoriously failed over and over and were giant money losses. Woodstock was a money loss. I think Woodstock 94 was a money loss. I think Woodstock 99 was even a money loss.
Yeah.
Well, they rioted, but that's a whole nother story. But most of those festivals did encounter a lot of losses and were not as successful as their European counterparts, who really took the festival model and ran with it. So that's also a super interesting point why we're seeing a lot of festivals now with jam-packed lineups, is because people are going and they are successful, and it's a great way for a lot of bands to make money and great exposure.
yeah, it's an entrepreneur's business, definitely, because people that put on festivals create this network of people around them that expand. It's kind of what the music industry has become, because during the summertime, that's what bands do now to sell their work.
And to your note too of like some of these bands with the giant fandoms, is like they're getting together at these festivals because they're bringing these giant, like a lot of us, like, to say like a band like Ween, where you're like, who is, when they get together with these other bands, you take that kind of fandom and you mix it together and you're able to sell out a giant thing, because like you noted, like if you want to see a band like Wolfpack, which is jam band adjacent, you would say like maybe you're not into them, but you're gonna go to that festival because that's the only place they're playing in that area.
Yeah,
so
you're more likely to see another band that you might not see.
Right.
So
it's also
cross-pollination.
leading to the less of a nationwide tour, but they're doing like 30 cities, where it's just like we're playing 10 cities this summer,
and they incorporate festivals during the summer into the tour. I mean, that's a lot of that is a very common thing.
Yeah.
I think that it is the direction music is going, especially with music no longer being really there. It's really the only analog thing left in the music world. Where else can you actually get paid cash to do anything? Like, it's all Spotify plays and
YouTube views.
It's all a digital currency. So the festival place is the place that people can make actual analog,
sell merch,
sell
merchandise,
merchandise, shake hands, kiss babies, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's so many types of festivals, because there's the wide net popular music festivals like Glastonbury that happened recently, or Coachella, Lollapalooza. Then generally festivals like that won't include metal acts, but you'll see giant metal festivals where it'll be like 30 metal bands.
You have like Vakken and even
Yeah.
Ozfest. at
You
one
have
point.
then you have like the cannabis culture festivals, so that'll be hip hop with metal, like a little bit of kind of underground stuff.
Punk rock bowling.
Punk
That's its
rock.
own. Their
Yeah.
punk rock bowling festival happens in Las Vegas. That's put on by
Yeah.
NoFX every year. That's one of my favorite
the
bands.
like EDM festivals
Big
too,
time.
where it's like a
Huge.
giant glow in the dark carnival the whole time.
Any weed adjacent festival is like any Cypress Hill, any band that can
Right.
fit on a bill with Cypress
Snoop
Hill gets
Dogg,
on there.
Cypress Hill.
Yeah, right.
Wiz Khalifa.
Wiz Khalifa, yeah.
Yeah,
And-
which is pretty cool.
And what do we think that like average price for a weekend festival is? What, still about like 190 maybe, and
that's
then fees
that's
and
a
shit?
larger festival.
Right.
I would say. I would say your local festivals that are having 1,000 to 1,500 people through the gate are usually in the $125 to $150.
Yeah, because I was gonna. I mean, I went to Strange Creek in Wormtown years ago.
Those are
years
usually.
ago, but
I
those
think it was
are.
$160 this year for Strange Creek's ticket.
Yeah.
If you bought it at the gate.
And that's probably
Okay, gotcha.
5,000 people maybe.
No, I would say Strange Creek probably puts more like 12 to 15
Sure.
through.
Yeah.
Strange Creek or Wormtown. Strange Creek, I think it's a little.
Yeah,
bit
those
more.
are both at Camp
Camp
Key.
Kinawan, Kanawini,
yeah,
it's
Kewanee or
Greenfield, Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Good times.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And I kind of found a lot of music that I'm into. I consider The Source first time I ever saw John.
Yeah, same here.
John Ferrara made me cry in front of the Verneville stage. That was my first experience with them. Thank you, John Ferrara.
yeah.
So, did you have any other like local festivals that you wanted to shout out? Like you were at one this weekend that you went to. Have you been to some that you thought were good that you would give a recommendation to go
I
to?
absolutely would shout out anything that the Summer Jam and Grateful Campout crew, FJR Productions in Maine, is putting on. They put on great shows. Those have been at Thomas Point Beach. It's a waterfront venue that's a regular campground with showers. In my opinion, the most family-friendly festival venue I've ever been to. You can actually kind of let your kids do their thing. There's not really anywhere for them to go there. It's a really good time. So I've been to a bunch there, and that's where I was this weekend. I'm gonna shout out my friends Leon Trout. They're putting on an event in Coyman's Hollow, New York, August 5th, 6th, 7th, I believe. So it's the first weekend of August. That's Trout Stock. Incredible lineup, all original music. The whole lineup is stacked. Look it up. I'll make sure these guys post the link in the comments. And that's the first band I would talk about. That's a band that I've watched come up for about 4 years right now that just gets better and better every time I see them. They learn. They just best riffing musicians that
I just want to give a quick side note, man. I think the first time I saw Leon Trout, they did that version of that Gorillaz song.
Clint Eastwood.
Thank you. And I was like, oh my god,
It's like
I
the
can't.
Guitar Hero version of
Yeah,
Clint
it's
Eastwood.
so good. It blew. I was blown away, man. It was
Major-
so
major
good.
riffage.
and great people.
Major
Yeah.
riffage.
Yeah, and they're cool guys. Yeah.
They're like they're jam heavily. They have they're like Guitar Hero, guitar solos abound.
Yeah.
Cool, really cool band.
Yeah,
They
open-
practice their
Trout.
scales.
Yeah.
and it's a band that practices twice a week, every week,
Yeah.
and gigs out too. It doesn't matter if you got 3 gigs this week; you still practice twice. They work hard and they deserve everything they're getting.
Yeah.
So they have a festival next month that I'll definitely attend. There's a lot of other great acts on it. Another big New England act right now, Bella's Bartok.
Oh yeah.
Horns Make Me Horny. Loves it's ska punk, circus punk, kind of System of a Down-ish.
Yeah.
He's got definitely has that
It's
Balkan
a
sounding.
gypsy European sound.
And I mean that's another band that just I feel gets better every time I see it. They do shift members. You see this weekend they had a different horn player than the last time I played, and felt like much more of it felt like I was seeing more like a actual ska act. The trumpet player really pushed I love horn bands.
Yeah.
Another horn adjacent band that I absolutely love. I kind of call them last year's rookie of the year is the Humans Being, Manchester, New Hampshire band. Piano player Matt Morello is also a kick-ass trumpet player. They play Cuban jazz music. They rock. Great people. All these people are my friends too. Great people.
Yeah.
And Whalum Park out of the Greenfield, Massachusetts, Athol area. Bunch of weirdos, but I love y'all. And they really, another band that is really like, every time I see them, you get better and better. That's kind of a punky. They kicked some Billie Eilish this weekend, which was really good.
Right
Thought
on.
that was good.
Yeah.
Did not see them this weekend. The last band that I will put on this list, just big shout out to Creamery Station from Connecticut. I think that's the hardest working Connecticut jam band. And they really are traditional in the sense they really were Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead, and the band. They probably had 50% of their music as their set, and now it's mainly originals. They rock. They're 7 or 8 piece band. They work together better than any other band that I've seen in that era. You know.
Yeah. I was thinking, not to put everybody on the spot too much, but are there any band names that are like your favorites that kind of give you a good, like, oh, that's a good one?
Local bands?
Yeah. Remember you were rattling off some band names like Psychedelic
Oh,
Sandwiches
bro,
or something or
there's
another.
A band,
like that was
there's
like
a band that plays around. I used to gig with them when I was in high school, and I think they're still around in some form today. Llama Tsunami and the Without
yes.
Helmet.
Yeah. Yeah.
On a lot of festivals that I saw at least a couple years ago, and they're still playing out. They were a ska band, so
Roy played with a band recently called Moon Matrix of the Lizard People.
Yeah. Nice.
I have to pull out a flyer, but I played a show one time in high school where every band on the flyer had like the most bizarre band name except us. We were the only ones with like a conventional band name. Everyone else was like Dog Eats Spider Shit, and you're just like, come on, man.
See, I would say the closest thing that I ever came to, like, my era, I would say the band names were always like, because it was like the metalcore era. So it's like, as this thing is happening, or while those things burn, or like, it was like always that 3-word, like, this thing is happening.
Big touring band coming through town, the Pros Music Hall, Hippie Death Cult from California.
Oh yeah, I've heard that band.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big they're a big thing.
Yeah.
They come through your city?
Yeah, August 4th, I believe. They're
Yeah.
Thursday, August 4th at Prost Beer House. Shout out
Might
to
have to go
John
there.
Brissom
Yeah.
and Dwayne. My man's over there.
Oh, also special shout out to all of the Tool fandoms as well as the Between the Buried and Me crazy prog metal fans, like the Rush fans and all that stuff too. Because I feel like that all kind of it kind of weaves in, man, where it's like that sort of devout band fandom. Like you know Between the Buried and Me fan. What are they? But what I'm saying is that what I'm saying though is that like what is that's all they talk about. Like that's what I'm saying. Like when I talk about like when I meet somebody who's in a band who's like really hardcore into like Tool or really into hardcore, like into like Between the Buried and Me and stuff. It's just like, yeah, but don't you listen to like anything else? And they're like, no, not really. I just listen to this one band all the
part of
time.
The issue that I take with a lot of people that are
Into these styles of
things, though, is
fandom.
because
Yeah.
they kind of rule out, and especially people that are musically, musicians that are into a particular thing,
Yeah.
feel that it's the only way you can play a guitar is by turning the treble up to 10, turning the low off, and running an auto wah. That's
right.
the only guitar.
That's not
sound
the only
for some
way?
people. Well,
This is news to me. I had no idea.
but that is you have that. It's people are trying to
Yeah.
recreate something, and I
Chase
guess
the
that-
dragon.
Well, and the thing is you have to think. I don't
Chase
think
the bear.
we're talking about we're silently talking about Jerry Garcia. Jerry Garcia looked to like these obscure places to find his
Right,
music. Reverend
right.
Gary Davis and all of these early blues and bluegrass that he wasn't somebody that was living off of somebody else's sound. He was looking for his own. So I
Yeah.
guess that's my main thing is look for your sound.
Yeah.
Find your sound.
Here.
Be yourself.
I was watching videos on Ottawas the other day,
Are you?
and I'm like, "What the fuck am I doing? Who have I become? This is awful."
It's a pan of Jeff's regular face, and then it goes to the Ottawa video, and then you look back, and he
Giant
has
gray
a beard.
beard.
He has a gray beard and like
And
little
John
glasses.
Lennon sunglasses.
Can I shout out one more
What have
band
I
here
become?
before we move on with
Absolutely.
that topic? I do want to talk about Goose.
Yeah, let's talk
I
about
have
it.
not seen Goose yet, but Goose is highly on my list. Goose was formed in Connecticut in 2014. If you haven't heard about them, they just sold out Radio City Music Hall 2 nights the other day with Trey Anastasio from Fish playing with them. They've played at Red Rocks.
Weren't they just on like MSNBC or something like that?
CBS
Was that them?
in the morning,
CBS
I believe.
in the morning.
They did a big show at Mohegan Sun. They had Goose Miss. That was a close to sold out show. Really, it might not necessarily be exactly what I look for in music, but definitely worth checking out. And if they're a big thing, I think it's worth, there's a reason why people like music. There's always something you can find.
I mean, to speak to Goose, a buddy of ours, shout out to Tad. He's a buddy of ours
Love
that
Tad.
I work with, and he's always telling me about Goose. He's like, dude, you gotta check this band out. They're like the hottest sort of like thing on the festival circuits right now. Like they're kind of and then Pigeons playing ping pong was another band.
Absolutely, I've definitely heard a lot of stuff about that.
Yeah, they do a
band.
great. What's that Talking Heads song? They do a cover. They do Psycho
Psycho
Killer,
Killer.
a crazy cover of that. Like, I'll try to link that in the description if I remember to.
There's so many other bands to talk about because if you just talk about New England, Connecticut right now is like the jam band capital of the world. Everyone moved here because everyone moved out of New York after the pandemic and moved to Connecticut. So you have like Hartford is swimming with these.
Well, I'm
nationwide
wondering
musicians.
if because our musical scene right now is very, Grateful Dead, leaning, and it's been that way for probably the past, coming on 10 years now.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if other places, we're in the New England area, we said that a couple of times now, but if other places around the country are going through the same kind of musical is your local music scene a lot of like jam music is because like that would be curious to know because we're doing an episode on what's going on in our area and
from the Midwest, do
in
you
the
have
history
anything going on?
of festivals. Like is there because around here there's been Mike was more on the festival scene about 10 years ago, right?
You
would say?
maybe like 12.
So and that's still like something that's really still strong. So I would wonder if that's the same everywhere else. It seems that at least like the bigger bands that we mentioned with these giant fandoms are pushing a festival style narrative around their music anyway. But it's just a curious thing because our local bands are playing jam music. Well, I wonder if your local bands are playing jam music.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. So. In conclusion, so to speak, you listen to this podcast, you decide, you know what, I think I'm going to go to a festival. I think I'm ready to go to a festival. We thought a fun little segment would be...
and seeing that Roy just got back from one.
Yes, thank you. Maybe like Roy, we thought, Roy's survival guide to festival going. So maybe some do's and don'ts, some tips and tricks.
That's what we want.
Maybe
want
some of the vernacular.
We want a seasoned expert.
So here's something. The first thing I put on my list because you hear people talking about this all the time. If you're gonna go to a festival, check the accommodations that are listed on the website. If they tell you that you have general admission camping, this does not mean you can camp with your car. This very well may mean that you have to walk your camping gear a long way away from where you're camping. So, pack light. Don't go camping at a festival like you're going camping with your family for 6 days in the woods. It's a mistake. Bring as little as you possibly can and try to make sure that you have the essentials. Like by essentials, I don't go to a festival without bringing my own toilet paper because I'm not going to rely.
Oh my God,
on
that's such a good
else.
idea.
Yeah.
I am not going to rely on somebody else to replace the toilet paper in the porta potty.
bag.
In a Ziploc. Very good, Jeffrey.
Ziploc. Heavy duty
water.
Ziploc bag.
Always bring more water than you need.
Yes,
All that
they
stuff.
always
That
can
was
go
my
home
question. What
with
kind
you,
of
too.
water are we doing here? Are we
I
bringing
like-
a case of water?
I bring a case of
Bottles,
bottles, and then I also purchase a 3-gallon container with the spigot for just about any camping trip I go because you're not necessarily going to be close to a wash station. You're not going to necessarily have showers. These are things to check and that would be just going back. Check the accommodations. Don't be mad at the promoter when you get to a festival because you didn't check what the accommodations were. Okay? It's your fault, not theirs. They planned it exactly the way that they planned it, and you did not read the flyer. You hear this, You hear people complaining about promoters all the time. It's really like not an easy job. Big shout out to the people that put these shows on, because this is kind of the future of live music viewing. So support them. It's important.
Yeah.
Other essentials. I mean, make sure you're planning. I mean, the idea of simple hydration. You know, make sure you're sleeping and make sure you don't end up in the med tent. Like, cause
What about a chair? We bringing chairs? We're bringing
I
no
bring
chairs.
chairs.
Yeah.
I bring a chair. I usually bring a campsite. And
Jeff's
then I have
shaking his head no on the chair.
Yeah, but I go to things as light as possible.
Are you squatting the whole time, or you
I just bring a blanket.
And just sit on the ground.
And I mostly just stand and walk around and
Yeah. Also, could I possibly
me.
throw in
Let's hear it.
stick together.
Sure.
My again
Such a good.
my
So
experience
good
was a
buddy system.
little bit different in the sense that like not everybody had a smartphone when I went to Strange Street for the first time. Things are a lot different now. Communication with one another has become much more convenient. But when I had gone, you know, only some people had smartphones. You know, so it's like if you are like, you know, if it's late, if it's like 1 a.m. and you got a buddy who like needs to go to the bathroom or wants to run and grab something to eat or something like that, accompany them. You know, like. That's not you know, it's not a knock on the people who attend festivals, but it's also just kind of like, hey man, stick together. There are, you know, there's kind of shady folk anywhere you go. You know what I mean? So like just
and I guess
keep an
that's
eye on
simple.
each other, stick together, man.
That simple thought of leave your bad vibes at home too, and if you're having a bad day, don't party. 'Cause you're
that
only going to
too.
make it bad for everybody else and
Yeah.
yourself.
I am not a festival goer, but a season camper. I'm going to throw out one. Get to know your neighbors who you're
time.
camping next
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
because it will make you just. It'll make it so much smoother. Like anything you're going through. Hey, can you watch my stuff real fast? You might have some like. You know, get to know your neighbors, introduce yourself, like see who you're camping next to. Maybe, oh, these are young teenagers. I don't really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would be my last point on my little list here is carry your valuables, stay with you. I have adopted the fanny pack because I carry
Yeah.
my wallet, my keys, everything that could possibly stays on me.
Yeah.
I don't ever leave money in my tent because if you don't leave money in your tent, it can't get stolen.
Yeah.
You don't leave your phone in your tent, can't get stolen.
Yeah.
Just pay attention. It's kind of
And-
like locking your car.
And kudos to the fanny pack too, because the fanny pack you can hold in front of you. You can do a backpack, but just be aware the backpack is behind you. So if somebody's behind you and you're kind of having a good time, and
these
you know
people
you
are gypsies.
Someone's backpack is hitting me in the face at the show when I was a younger man, and I have unzipped this backpack, and I did throw his crap out on the ground because it kept hitting me in the face.
My man.
I would say definitely bring solar charging phone chargers or lights. Again, Ziploc bags, because you never know. Even if it doesn't rain, things are going to get moist in the middle of the night in your tent. So you always want that. So that way you can be in contact with people. And to keep it real, festivals, going into the mature rating. If you're going to do drugs at festivals, my personal advice, do drugs with people you know and don't buy drugs from people like that you don't.
Yeah.
Because
Use responsibly. Have a good time, but use responsibly.
Have fun with your
festivals
friends.
Do have testing.
Yeah,
kits
have
now.
fun
They
with
have
your
a place-
friends,
Most of
but-
them will have a place to test drugs.
Yeah.
I don't condone it.
Yeah.
I'm not a big
Yeah.
personal drug user, but
Yeah.
that I definitely would rather see people being safe.
and that
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
that goes anything from drinking on up. You know.
Be safe.
Take
Be safe,
care of the people
mindfulness.
you're with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a well-pointed thing in this day and age.
Yeah.
Because, to not talk about it, I think would be a disservice in festival tips
Yeah. So there you have it.
and trips.
Some notable festivals, some fun local bands to check out.
Can I, before we leave,
Yes.
if anybody has a quick festival story before we go that they think of as of note, I think our audience would like to hear it. But if
Ooh.
not, that's fine. If anybody has a quick story, though, I feel like we'd be remiss.
Sure. Very quick story. I saw the band now defunct Turquoise at a festival that Roy and I played at. I think that was 3 summers ago, and it was a 9-piece band, and they had a horn section, and we were camped right behind the stage, and this band's members were all like in single color outfits. So one guy would be blue, one guy would be green, the guy in red, who was the sax player, he was walking by the stage, which was just a mud sinkhole pit with like craters of awfulness, and we're all sitting there, and I go, this dude's about to lose it. And like 5 seconds later, he walked, and he was like knee deep in mud, and he goes, oh, what the fuck?
Shout out to Hey Greg's from Turquoise. That's the man, or currently the horn section.
Yes.
I like that story. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I
Mike?
mean, mine could be. I don't know. I don't want to say anything that could get me in some hot water. But
I'm
I
filtering
did.
as we speak, Mike.
I did delve down a psychedelic journey. Do you want to call it that? And it was funny because it wasn't going very well. But something that did kind of make me chuckle was that we went. we had got there late. We indulged, whatever, and I wasn't really feeling it. So I went back to the tent, and I was laying in the tent, and the people that were camping next to us, they didn't know that I was in the tent, and they were relentlessly talking shit about us. They're like, these fucking assholes pitched their goddamn tent right next to our fucking tent. Like, what the fuck? And then I decided to get out of the tent, and I got up, and I stood up, and they kind of looked at me, and we kind of exchanged nods, and I just kind of carried on my merry way, and I was like, yeah, if there's somebody in here, I can hear you talking shit on me. But that's not even the worst of it. But just a funny sort of
I like it.
Experience.
Thank you.
Also, I won't say exactly what happened at one experience, but also if you are doing drugs, try to do them discreetly and not just showing up at a stranger's campsite and doing particular types of drugs in front of people who are just kind of like, hey man, how about you don't freebase ketamine at noon on Sunday in front of fucking everybody? Just throwing that out there.
Time and place, everyone.
Those kinds of things happen, man. They kind of happen, and we were like, this is our cue to go. We're gonna get going.
All right, I got one good tame one.
Okay.
So at Wormtown 2019, we were camped on the infamous Rachel Lane out in the woods, and the people across from us were selling bong nuts. So you know how people have the nuts that hang off of the bumper of their car? They were making little glass nuts to hang off of your bong.
Wow.
So at nighttime,
Crazy. This is a fine line between
I
genius
love
and
capitalism.
okay, so at nighttime, they
The ingenuity of
spelled
hippies
out
is something else.
bong nuts in glow sticks in front of their property. And I personally planned a strategic operation and figured out which glow sticks needed to be moved to turn bong nuts into burnouts. So I planned it, and I did. It was only you only had to move 5 glow sticks, and we turned their sign. So we don't know how long it took for them. I think I did it in front of them too. I walked.
Yeah, they didn't even realize. They're like,
They didn't
oh.
even realize that I was doing it. I just walked into their campsite and changed the sign. But yes, that's my tame story. It was
Roy,
pretty
that
fun.
is a
awesome.
10 out of 10 story. To the makers of Bong Nuts.
Hey, bong nuts fans.
Hey, Bong Nuts, if you want to sponsor this podcast, reach out to us.
We will hang your nuts all over this set. We'll just be surrounded by bong nuts.
That was
right on.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you for coming on, Roy.
I can't think of a better way to end this episode.
Yeah, bong nuts. Check us out. As we wrap up, remember to like and subscribe and comment and share this podcast. We love you, and thank you for hanging around with us for 100 episodes, man.
100 episodes.
You made it
Congratulations,
through,
guys.
You made it through remote recordings, through COVID, and all kinds of fun stuff with us.
What
and,
other
hopefully-
COVID podcast has made it this long? I want to know.
I want to know. Leave it in the
grab the mic.
Leave it in the comments. He's going Henry Rollins on us.
The
This is
history
his
of
war.
China.
All right. So until next time, guys, this has been Get in the Garage.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
very
me.
much, Roy Houle.
Thank
for
you,
coming on
everyone.
our
Like and
podcast
subscribe.
Be
helping
safe
us
out there at these
celebrate
festivals,
our
folks.
100 episode
100
anniversary. 100 years. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
This has been a presentation from the Wasted Robot Network. For more information and links to other shows, please visit www.wastedrobotrecords.com/podcasts.